Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I am going to finally share my birth story. I realized that right now I am almost 8 weeks postpartum. So I was like, time's a ticking, I need to get on this. I feel like I've almost forgot my entire birth story. As I was like thinking about it in my head, I was like, oh, I forgot this. And so hopefully I don't forget to tell you guys anything because I want to share my entire experience. So I'm just gonna jump right on into this video because I gotta get back to my baby girl. So hopefully I can just kind of speed through it but remember as many details as possible. So to start off, before I actually went into labor, I was 40 weeks and 2 days whenever I gave birth. So on the 40th week, it was a Friday, because it was the day that like I hit 40 weeks, I had to go to the doctor. I had a doctor's appointment and my hair keeps getting in my face. And so I went to the doctor, and the week before they had told me that if I didn't go into labor, that on the 40-week mark I could get a membrane sweep, because I didn't want to get what is it called, not C-section, where they put you into labor. I can't remember now, mom brain. I'm just gonna like write it on the screen if I remember. So I didn't want to have that happen on the 40th week. So they said if I don't go into labor on the 40th week, I could get my membrane swept, and if that didn't work, then they were definitely gonna have to schedule me, whatever it's called, in the next week, because the baby needed to come out eventually. So whenever I went to my doctor's appointment, I got my membrane swept, and on the 39th week I was 1 centimeter and 75% effaced. When I went in for the 40-week appointment, I was like 1.5, 2 centimeters almost dilated and 80% effaced. And my whole pregnancy, my baby was sitting very, very low. And so they had seen that she was like perfect for like getting my membrane swept, because I would most likely go into labor because she was sitting so low. So anyways, I go in and they check my cervix and they do the membrane sweep. And first of all, when they do a membrane sweep, it's kind of uncomfortable. Like a cervix check is uncomfortable, and for a membrane sweep they have to keep their hand up there a little bit longer and like do this like motion inside of you, and it's just very uncomfortable and I didn't like it. But it only lasts for a few seconds and it's not super painful. Of course, depending on pain tolerance, it can be really painful to not painful at all, but for me it was like kind of uncomfortable, not painful, but just I didn't like it. So I got my membrane swept. So after I left, like I still didn't feel like she was coming whatsoever. Like I just didn't feel I was going into labor at all. So that day, it was December 13th, that was my due date. There was a family Christmas at our church, and it was kind of like this huge like festival thing. There was gonna be hot chocolate, there was gonna be a show, there's just like a whole different things going on at the church. So I was like, okay, we're gonna go to this because I need to walk around, I need to get out, I need to like just move this baby along. And so we went, and I like walked like constantly, and people who knew that was my due date, they were like, why are you here? And I was like saying I'm trying to get the baby out. And then there were other people that were like, oh, when is your due date? Like you look so good and blah blah blah. And I was like, today is my due date. And I just love saying that because I feel like I threw so many people off, because they would ask my due date and I'd be like, today is my due date and she's not here yet. So but it was kind of funny. So I just like went, and at that point, like you're not supposed to eat hot dogs whenever you're pregnant, but I had two hot dogs and Cheetos, because I was like, I don't even care anymore, it's not gonna hurt her, I want a hot dog, and instantly regretted it afterwards. Anyways, so I went, you know, was moving, walking, you know, trying to like walk her out and stuff like that. So that night, well, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, and I was laying on my right side, and I flipped over to my left side, and I immediately started having contractions. I had felt contractions before. I was getting a lot of Braxton Hicks, but not any like repetitive contractions. And I knew kind of like what they felt like because of people explaining what it felt like, and kind of like a period cramp and stuff like that. And so I had felt it, but then 3 minutes later, I felt it again. And then 3 minutes after that, 3 to 5 minutes later after that, felt it again, felt it again, felt it again. And so I tried to flip over to my other side, they weren't going away. So I was like, okay, well maybe I'll just go to sleep and like I'll try to like sleep it off, and then whenever I wake up in the morning, they'll be stronger. Couldn't go to sleep, not because they were painful, but because I'm the type of person that when I like think of something, I like can't get it out of my brain. So I like hyper focus on it. So whenever I was laying down, I was like super hyper focused on the pain. And I was like, okay, I just have to get up. I have to like go walk around. So I went into our baby's nursery and I sat on the rocking chair and I just kind of like rocked back and forth and was kind of like just like breathing with the contractions, and they weren't painful like at all at this point, but they're like a period cramp where you're like, you can feel it and it hurts, but it's not like super painful. And so I was just kind of like breathing through it, practicing my breathing, rocking and stuff like that. And I texted my mom because I had been timing my contractions on a contraction app, and they were 3 to 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, like for an hour, 2 hours straight. And so I texted my mom, and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I told her I was in labor. And my mom had planned on, as soon as I said that, booking her flight and getting to Washington. My mom lives in Texas, I live in Washington. And she booked her flight, got a flight, was like headed here. And so I texted her, and then I was like, okay, well, I've been contracting for a while. I should probably go tell Connor. So I go into the room and I like tap him on the shoulder, and he thinks this is the most hilarious thing for some reason. I tap him on the shoulder and I'm like, I've been having contractions for the past few hours. They've been 3 to 5 minutes. Just want to let you know. And he wakes up and he's like, what? And he's like, he thinks it's funny because I'm so calm, and he's like, contractions? Like, he's kind of like freaked out, like we need to do something about this. And he's like, do I have time to take a shower? And I was like, yeah, of course. Like, it wasn't a big deal. And I was like, I just feel like I'm not in pain yet, so I don't think I'm going into labor anytime soon. So he takes a shower, and then I believe I take a shower next, or I take a shower before I tell him. Anyways, I take a shower and it was a glorious shower because at that point my contractions were starting to get stronger. So take a shower, and then we go downstairs and we do like a lap around our downstairs just so I can again walk the baby out a little bit more. And my contraction app keeps saying, you need to go to the hospital, you need to go to the hospital, because I was at 3 to 5 minutes for like 5 hours, because it was 3 o'clock to 8 in the morning that I had contractions 3 to 5 minutes apart. So it kept saying that, and I was like, I don't feel it, I don't feel it, like I don't feel like I need to go to the hospital. But it was 8 o'clock already, and Connor was like, okay, we need to go to the hospital, we need to just check. Like, he was more, I think, freaked out than I was, just because he probably doesn't know what I'm feeling, and he's like, we just need to go. So I was like, okay, we'll go. So we go to the hospital, and we go to this place called Triage, and it's a place that you go before they check you in to your like room if you're actually in labor. So Triage is kind of like the in-between to make sure you're actually in labor. So I go in and they ask me like why I'm there, and I'm like, I think I'm in labor and I'm having contractions. And she was like, okay, have a seat. So finally the lady comes out and meets us and brings us back, and they put this thing on you that goes around your stomach, and it basically monitors the contractions and how your baby is doing through the contractions. So they put it on me, put an IV I think in me, I don't even remember now, and monitor the contractions. Oh, and then they do a cervix check at the very end to see where you're at. And I was having contractions 3 to 5 minutes apart, so I was having contractions, but I was only 2.5, almost 3 centimeters dilated. And so I was like, what? What? So the lady was like, you can either, and we had been there for like an hour or two already by the time we found that out. So the lady was like, you can either stay here and you can like walk around, walk the hallways, walk outside, you know, do whatever you want. She was like, and then we can check you in a few hours to see where you're at, or you can go home, labor at home, and come back later. So I had always wanted to labor at home. So I was like, okay, well, I think we're gonna go home because I want to labor at home, and we'll come back, you know, later. So we go home. Well, Connor makes me an obstacle course, and I have to do like 50 bounces on my yoga ball, and then I have to do figure eights around these chairs, and then I have to go downstairs, do a few laps. I can't even remember everything now. A few laps, and then come back up and do it all over again. So I was doing that, and he went to go get Jamba Juice and Firehouse for himself. So he goes and does that, and he comes back, and I'm still doing, you know, all the things. Well, when we got home, it was maybe 12 o'clock. So that's when he went to go get food. And during this time, like, he started cleaning, I was doing all this stuff. Well, then fast forward to 3 o'clock, I believe. And I had said that we were going to go back to the hospital around 3 o'clock. So it was like starting to get towards 3 o'clock, and I was like, okay, I feel like they're getting stronger, but I'm not sure. So maybe we should wait, maybe we should like go. I just wasn't sure. So I kept doing the figure eights, and I could feel like my contractions were getting a little bit stronger. So I sit down on one of the chairs, and there's this like thing that you do if you are having a really strong contraction. Your partner can help you, and it's basically like they push on your hips to basically help with the contraction, the force of the contraction, so that you don't have to take all of it in, but they can like help relieve some of the pressure on your back. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but basically like they're supposed to press on your back to help you. So I sit in a chair, and he does that thing. He's like, let me help you, let me practice. And he pushes, and my water bursts open. I can feel it bust inside of me. And it was the craziest thing that I never thought I would experience, but I experienced it. And he like, it just like pops. And I was like, my water broke. My water broke, and like I'm leaking all over the place. And he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure. And I run to the bathroom, and luckily I was wearing a pad, and so the pad caught a lot of it. But I also like, I sat down on the toilet and I peed, and so I knew that there was like a difference between the pee and the water breaking, because they were like totally different. And so I was peeing, and then I was like, okay, we have to go to the hospital now because my water broke. And when your water breaks, the clock starts. Like you have to give birth once your water breaks. So water breaks, and I forgot to put on a pad. And so I'm like leaking everywhere. I'm leaking on the way to the car. I'm leaking in the car. I'm leaking on my way into the hospital. Like if you guys watched our vlog, our birth vlog, you can see that I'm just like I'm just so uncomfortable by how much I'm leaking. My water is still breaking. I'm literally peeing my pants right now, and I'm really glad I'm wearing black. I feel like I should hold myself, but I can't even reach down there. So we get to the hospital again, then we go to triage, and the lady again is like, hi, why are you here? And I was like, I'm pretty sure my water broke. And she's like, okay, thank you, have a seat. And I'm like, okay. And by this time, because my water broke, my contractions are getting stronger. So the lady finally comes out, and she says, come in. I instantly ask for the bathroom because I'm leaking so much. So I go into the bathroom, try to clean myself up. There's like this, it's like not even so liquidy. It's like liquid and a thick substance. Like, because it's amniotic fluid, it's just like thicker than just water. So I'm like trying to clean myself up, and finally I'm just like, whatever. So I go to my room, lay on the bed, still leaking. It was so much leakage. They put that thing on you again to monitor your contractions and everything else. So after they put that thing on, they have to make sure that your water actually broke. So they do like a little swab, and they go and test it. The testing takes about 30 minutes, so you have to like stay there for 30 minutes, but I was actually like in that room for about an hour or two. It was quite a long time because of everything that was happening. So they did that, they took the swab, put it, and went to go test it. And then they also did another cervix check. So when your water breaks, they can only do so many cervix checks, because they don't want it, like if they go up, they don't want to introduce bacteria that's at the bottom into the top, because then that can cause an infection and the baby's coming out and like all these things. So they did one, and they were like, okay, we're gonna do one, but the next one we do is gonna be like in a long time. So we just wanna make sure where you're at right now. So she checks me. I'm only at 3. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm pretty sure I was at 3. I think I was maybe almost at 4, but I'm pretty sure I was at 3. And I was like, I got a long way to go. So I was like, okay, this is happening because they're starting to get stronger and stronger and stronger. She's like, you know, she's sitting so low. It's strong. I'm only at 3. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, am I gonna be able to make this? This pain is starting to get worse. I'm in there drinking water, pain is getting really bad, and I'm just like, and I'm laying on my back. I can't even like really move around because 1, I'm leaking. 2, they have like monitors on me to make sure that the baby's okay, the contractions are doing well. I still have to get my swab back to make sure that the water, that my water actually broke, and just a whole bunch of stuff. And it was triage, I feel like, is an annoying part because you could be contracting bad, but you have to stay in that room to see if you're actually in labor. So finally, the nurse comes and takes us to our room. So we go to the room, and luckily the lights are super dim. They are dark, and it just is very like cozy in there. There's like a bed, there's a couch, there's medicine balls, there's a tub that I could labor in, just like very nice room. And I was able to put my playlist on, have worship music on, and so that was like really great. So basically the nurse said like, I'll be in and out, just checking on you, let me know if you need anything, but other than that, like, you guys can just, you know, do whatever you want. So I was like, okay, great. First thing that we did when we got in was like, I tried to do some of the yoga balls, but then the contractions were getting so strong that I was like, okay, I need to try the nitrous. And so the nurse comes in and we try the nitrous oxide, and honestly, for me, that didn't work at all. Like, I don't know if I used it wrong or my contractions were super strong, but whenever I like breathed in, I could still feel my contractions like 100%. They didn't do anything. And the nurse was saying like, mostly it's a distraction, but it wasn't distracting to me. I just hated the nitrous oxide. So I was like, forget this, I'm not gonna even try this. So then the nurse suggested that we get in the tub, and I labor in the tub. So we get into the tub, Connor is like pouring water over my belly, and it feels so nice, but contractions are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And for me, my contractions were in my back, my butt, and going down my legs. And that was extremely painful. I just like could not handle it anymore. And going into labor, I didn't want to have an epidural. Having this much pain at 3 centimeters dilated, I was like, no way. Like, if I'm at 5 or 6 centimeters and I'm feeling this much pain, like, okay, maybe I'll go the whole way. But if I'm only at 3 or 4, I don't think I can do it. And so I asked my midwife to check me once more to see where I was at. And, you know, if she told me that I was further along, then, you know, fine, I could do it. But if not, with this much pain and my water already being broken, like, no way. So the midwife checks me, and I'm only at 4. And I was like, okay, give me the epidural. Because no way can I go through this. Can I be in this much pain? Like, no way. And a part of me felt ashamed because, like, a huge part of me wanted to go epidural free and to just like be in worship, and I felt ashamed that I had to get it. But a part of me was also like, it's okay, like, that is okay. You do not have to be in this much pain, Brittany. This is why they created epidurals. Like, it's okay. And so after I had that ashamed feeling, I was like just listening to the worship music, and then I kind of like turned away from that shame and was like, no, I get to live in freedom from being ashamed. I'm getting this epidural. So the epidural person comes in, and it takes like a little bit of time for them to actually put the epidural in your back. So I was contracting that entire time, and luckily they let me hold on to Connor, and I had to sit down. And so I was like breathing into his chest because it hurt so bad. Oh, and also still, my contractions were 3 to 5 minutes apart. So the entire labor, they never got closer together. Like, maybe towards the end a little bit, but, and I'll talk more about that, but they stayed very consistent. 3 to 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. So I would like breathe into his chest. Finally, they put the epidural in my back. Oh, also another thing that I forgot to mention, I'm a very modest person. Like, I don't like to like reveal myself in any way. Even whenever I was pregnant, like, people rarely ever saw my actual belly, the skin, because I don't really like to show my body. But it was funny because when you're in labor and you are about to give birth, like, everything changes. So I got into the tub naked, and then the nurses were all there, like the midwife, and then I got out of the tub naked to go to the bed to get an epidural. So like that entire time, everyone was seeing me butt naked. Like a part of me was like, oh my gosh, I'm naked. But then like after the first time everyone saw me naked, I was just like, whatever. Like there was a man that came in to, I think he needed to like hook up an IV or something, and I was completely naked. Like I had a bra on, actually. I had my bra on, but from the bra down, I was naked, and my belly was big enough to where he couldn't see down below. He was still in the bathroom when I was in the tub, and I didn't have any clothes on, and I like let him in. It was just like the most bizarre thing. Like when you're in labor, like you don't even care about anything. I was like naked, and I'm the most modest person, and I was like, come on in, everyone, just see me naked, that's fine. It was just crazy. So anyways, get the epidural, and probably 5 or 10 minutes the epidural started working, and I have to say that I feel like I had the best epidural ever, because I could feel my legs, I could still move, but I could not feel any of my contractions. Like I could semi-feel it, but it was like zero pain. Like I could kind of feel that it was happening, but there wasn't any pain to it, if that makes sense. So kind of hours went by, the nurse came to check on me. She would rotate me. One of my legs would be up, and then we would go the other side, one of my legs, just so the epidural could be balanced in my body. You know, hours would pass, she would check on me. I could only eat ice chips at this point, which was the worst. And finally my mom came. So my mom, like I said, she booked her flight, and she got there the same day. She got there at 5 o'clock in the evening, I think, around that time. And she came, and I was so excited. Like I really didn't want to be in labor for that long, but I'm very, very grateful that my mom was able to come and be a part of this experience, and just like get me through the birth experience basically, and like be able to support me and be there. And so she was there, super, super excited. So the rest of the night was just kind of like me rotating, me worshiping to music. I couldn't sleep. I think I was too anxious, and the epidural wasn't affecting me to where I was like really tired. I just could not sleep. I was just too anxious. And so I would close my eyes. I think the longest I slept for was like 10 minutes. And then I woke up and changed positions and like all the things. So then at like 10 o'clock, the midwife comes in, and she does one last cervix check. She's like, okay, we're gonna check you to see where you're at. She was like, I feel like we're getting close to you needing to push based on like the strength of my contractions. So she checks me, and she's like, you're at 9 centimeters. I believe that's what she said. She was like, you're at 9 centimeters. And me and Connor had said, we were like, you know, we hope I'm at least at 6. Like, I hope, you know, I'm at least this, whatever. And when she said 9 centimeters, we were like, what? Because I hadn't been feeling anything. Like I could kind of feel it. They were getting stronger, so I could like gradually start to feel that they were getting stronger, but like I did not think I was at 9 at all. So she was like, okay, within the next like hour, you're gonna start pushing. So she was like, so I'll be back then. So I was like, okay. So she leaves, and I'm like mentally preparing myself that I'm gonna have to start pushing soon. And from what I've heard from like my mom's experience, from like so many people's experience, pushing is like an hour tops, maybe 2 hours. So that's like what was in my head. That's what I thought, that's what was gonna happen. So she comes back in, and time for me to push. And again, the great thing about me having an epidural that I could feel was I could feel when my contractions were happening. So I was able to push while I was contracting. So I started, you know, pushing, and they told me to push like I was pooping. Side note, yes, I did poop. I had a mirror in front of myself so that I could see my progress, and I could actually see myself poop. It was the worst thing ever, and no one even talks about it. No one in the room says, oh, you just pooped. The nurses don't talk about it. Family doesn't talk about it. Like, it just happens, and the nurses just swipe it away. It is the craziest thing, and I don't like the fact that I watch myself poop but it happened. And it could happen to you. Also, I didn't feel the poop. I just saw it come out. Because they tell you, push like you're pooping. So it's like the same muscles you use to push, you use to go to the bathroom. Anyways, really weird. So I'm pushing, and hour goes by, almost no progress, like a little bit of progress, but not really. And the midwife, after an hour, is basically like helping to open me up, basically, because my cervix was so small that my baby was like stuck in there and she was like not coming out. And so she was like trying to help the head come out. Second hour was like the same thing, and at the second hour they almost gave me Pitocin, I think that's how you say it, Pitocin, because my contractions were still 3 to 5 minutes. I would do like one huge one and then have to like wait, and then do another huge one and like have to wait. And so they basically were telling me at each contraction I just have to give it my all because they're not coming closer. Not till like the last hour, maybe 30 minutes, where they're getting closer together. So pushing, she's helping me, helping, and it's just like agony. Like I keep pushing and I'm getting so exhausted, and at one point I get on my hands and knees because I'm able to flip over, and I'm like pushing there, and it's just like super painful because the epidural is wearing off, and I'm just like starting to feel everything, and I'm getting exhausted. And finally I flip over back on my back, and I'm trying to push. Nothing is happening, and it's just so terrible. So I'm like pushing harder, I'm trying to do it stronger, like everything I can do. So finally they were like, okay, you need to just push as hard as you can, because if not, we're gonna have to give you Pitocin because we're getting close to the 3-hour mark. So I guess something in me was like, do everything you can, because once they said that they were gonna give it to me, I just like basically was just like giving it everything. Even towards the end I started like grunting and like, not screaming, but like almost screaming, if that makes sense. So I like pushing harder. Finally her head comes out, but it's stuck in my lady hole. So like I couldn't even relax, because anytime I would breathe, it just like would barely go in, and then it would like instantly go out. So it was like so painful whenever she was stuck in the middle of the inside and the outside. That was the most painful. So that was probably for about, I don't know, 30 minutes, maybe longer. It felt like forever. So, and then finally I did the hugest like push of my life, and she just like sprang out. Like there was no, oh my shoulder got caught or like anything. She literally just like flew out of me, and Connor caught her. He was able to catch her, and it was just, I was hysterical. I was so hysterical. I don't even know what happened. Like after 3 hours of pushing, they put her on my chest, and I didn't cry. I was so hysterical that I was like in shock. I was in shock that I had been in labor for so long. I was in shock that I had pushed for so long. Like not until later when I saw her did I cry. When they put her on me for the first time, I was shocked. So then like she wasn't breathing, so they had to like kind of pat her back and like hit her on the back. And they actually had to take her over to the light for a second to make sure she was okay. And then luckily they were able to bring her back for like the full hour of the like golden hour time of like me and her just being together. And then my mom was able to cut her umbilical cord, and my mom again was like super helpful the entire time, just like encouraging, super helpful. Her and Connor just being there and supporting me. And so yeah, so she just laid on my chest, and then while she was laying on my chest, they did the birth of the placenta. And that was like really weird. They pressed on my stomach, which kind of hurt, and then they said do a quick like push. And so she was pushing on my stomach, and then I pushed, and then like out came the placenta. That was really crazy. And then I got to like see the placenta. That was weird. Don't think I've ever seen like a placenta in my life. So that was like a really quick, like painless process. Other than the fact that she was pushing on my stomach, that was uncomfortable, but the actual like birth of it was not painful. And then, oh, I had 2nd degree tearing and I had internal tearing. I don't know what that means, but I had internal tearing and then 2nd degree. So that was really painful. But I will have to say that like before giving birth, I was afraid, so afraid of tearing, because it sounds terrible. Like, tearing your lady parts sounds terrible, but I actually didn't feel it whatsoever, like not at all. I think with like her coming out and that being painful, and then me being hysterical, and like your body knows what to do, and I think it's endorphins, is that what it is? Whatever the chemical is in your brain that helps with pain. With that kind of like going all over the place, pain of ripping, didn't feel it at all, not at all. So that's good. I felt it obviously after postpartum, but during the actual birth, I didn't feel it. So I'm pretty sure that's it. Like, I feel like in just a few hours, everything about me changed. Like, I was okay being naked. Like, my mom saw me poop, and my mom saw my lady parts. Not that she hasn't before, obviously, she's my mom, but like just the craziness of like people seeing that, and me being like a modest person, and then like pushing a baby out and being hysterical and tearing, and like all these different things that happened within 24 hours of being in labor. It's just the craziest thing. And hopefully I didn't miss anything, but during that 24 hours and the day after, I could have told you I will never have a baby again. This is the worst. Birth is terrible and traumatic. But it's interesting because now 7-8 weeks later, your brain associates the pain with childbirth to something completely different. Like, when I look at my baby, I don't even think that I went through such a traumatic experience to have her. I just think of her and how beautiful and amazing she is, and my brain is like, something else traumatic happened and that's why you're in pain. Like, it just blocks birth out of the picture. Like, it's just the most it's like the most crazy thing. And so I have to like remember and keep in my brain, pregnancy and birth are hard. Pregnancy and birth are hard. So yeah, that was my birth story, and hopefully I remembered everything. Hopefully I tried to like give you guys like the poop and the tearing and all of that stuff, just so you know, like actually know what birth is like. There's a lot of births where you tear. There's a lot of births where you poop, and the reality is like those things happen, and sometimes people don't share those. Like, I never would have known that that's like a real thing, and it can happen to almost everyone if it didn't happen to me. So but hopefully it doesn't happen to you. Hopefully you don't poop, hopefully you don't tear. Like, really, I hope that doesn't happen to you. But I will say, having a mirror in front of you is super helpful, especially if you are past an hour of pushing, because it was super motivating. It helped me see where she was at, keep me encouraged that she was like actually coming. And yeah, so request that if you can. Anyways, I'm done babbling. So yep, that's it in my video, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.